Hello, and welcome to a new episode of the original story of our childhood cartoons. I'm Astral Sagas. Today, we're going to explore the real and scary story of the Hunchback of Notre Dame together. So, if you're brave enough, stay with us until the end of the video. When I was a kid, I didn't really like this movie. I didn't hate it, but there wasn't much I enjoyed about it. The plot and themes were a bit too complex for me. I understood what was going on, but I didn't really get why it was happening. For instance, I didn't get why Frollo hated the gypsies so much, or why it was such a big deal that he liked Esmeralda. To make this episode, I rewatched the movie over the weekend. It's still not one of my favorite Disney films, but I found it more entertaining. I was also surprised by how dark it is and the adult themes it deals with, especially for a Disney movie. So if Disney told the story this way, imagine how much darker the original version is. Before we dive into that, let's go over what happens in the Disney version. The Hunchback of Notre Dame takes place in Paris and follows Quasimodo, a bell ringer who was born to a family of gypsies. Frollo, the minister of justice who hates gypsies, either arrested or killed them. After killing an innocent woman, Frollo takes in her deformed baby, names him Quasimodo, and raises him in the Notre Dame Cathedral, where he becomes the bell ringer. Frollo and Quasimodo don't have a healthy relationship. Frollo controls him, making Quasimodo think he's too weak to face the cruel world outside. But despite being warned, Quasimodo sneaks out to attend a festival and has fun until he's humiliated by the crowd. Esmeralda, a gypsy, saves him, but she's soon on the run from Frollo for using witchcraft. She hides in Notre Dame for protection. Esmeralda catches the eye of three men: Quasimodo, Phoebus, a guard captain, and the creepy Frollo. Frollo goes on a manhunt to capture Esmeralda, leading to chaos. He tries to burn her at the stake after she rejects him, but Quasimodo and the gypsies, with Phoebus's help, rescue her. In the final battle, Frollo falls to his death while trying to kill Quasimodo and Esmeralda. In the end, Quasimodo is celebrated as a hero, while Esmeralda and Phoebus fall in love and live happily ever after. As dark as this story is, the 1833 novel by Victor Hugo is even darker. The book wasn't just about a sad tale of a bell ringer and a gypsy. Hugo wrote it to highlight the importance of Gothic architecture, which was being neglected or replaced at the time. Hugo included long, detailed descriptions of buildings, similar to J.R.R. Tolkien's style, pausing the story to talk about Notre Dame's architecture and how efforts to fix it actually made it worse. Some parts of the book are tricky to get through because they contain flashbacks, plot twists, and scenes from different viewpoints. To keep my explanation simple, I'll go through the events in order. Like in the movie, Quasimodo is born to a family of gypsies, but in the book, his family actually kidnaps the newborn daughter of a woman named Gijul and replaces her with the deformed Quasimodo. Because of this, Gijul loses her mind a bit. She starts hating gypsies, thinking they ate her daughter. She leaves Quasimodo in a special bed at Notre Dame meant for unwanted babies, where wealthier families could adopt them. But, as you'd expect, no one wanted to take in the deformed Quasimodo, except for the priest, Claude Frollo. In the book, Frollo's decision to adopt Quasimodo wasn't out of guilt or fear of God, but because of his past. As a child, his parents died from the plague in 1466, leaving him to care for his younger brother. When he saw baby Quasimodo, helpless and unwanted, it reminded him of his brother and how he could have faced the same fate. So Frollo adopted him, naming him Quasimodo, and raised him in the cathedral, teaching him to read and basic social skills. However, Quasimodo had both physical and mental disabilities, which frustrated Frollo. Besides his hunchback, he had a large wart that made him blind in one eye, red hair on his face, and became deaf from ringing the bells at 14. Despite Frollo's good intentions, he wasn't a kind person, and their relationship ended up just as unhealthy as in the movie. The next major event is the Festival of Fools, where the book actually begins. Like in the movie, Quasimodo decides to leave the cathedral and see the world. He's crowned Pope of Fools for having the ugliest face. The crowd lifts him up, carrying him through the streets while others gather around Esmeralda, the beautiful gypsy, watching her dance. Frollo sees Esmeralda for the first time and, despite his religious vow of abstinence, is immediately attracted to her. Frollo orders Quasimodo to kidnap her, but the plan fails. Quasimodo fends off some people trying to protect Esmeralda, but Captain Phoebus arrests him, and he's put through a ridiculous trial. Both Quasimodo and the judge are deaf, so they can't communicate. When the crowd laughs at this situation, the judge thinks Quasimodo is mocking him and sentences him to 2 hours in the pillory, where he's whipped and humiliated by the public. This scene is similar to the movie's version where Quasimodo is tied down during the Festival of Fools and spun around while people throw things at him. In the book, he's strapped to a rotating pillory, whipped and pelted with rocks. During this, Quasimodo looks to Frollo for help, but Frollo ignores him to punish him for failing the kidnapping. Esmeralda is the only one who shows Quasimodo kindness, offering him water. After he's released, Quasimodo falls in love with her because she's the first person to treat him kindly. 2 months later, Captain Phoebus is flirting with rich women in the town square near Notre Dame. The author points out that Phoebus struggles to talk to them without boasting about his many conquests with other women. He's so focused on impressing them that he doesn't even notice Esmeralda dancing nearby. As Phoebus is chatting with the upper-class women, one of them recognizes Esmeralda and says, "Hey, Phoebus, isn't that the girl you saved from being kidnapped?" She calls Esmeralda over, but the women treat her rudely, even sneaking a look in her bag. They discover she has carved Phoebus's name into a piece of wood, which makes one woman jealous, thinking there might be competition for the captain's attention. The woman freaks out, calls Esmeralda a witch, and faints. Embarrassed, she runs away, but Phoebus chases after her and asks if she wants to meet him later that night. Esmeralda agrees. Unbeknownst to them, Frollo is watching from Notre Dame, filled with jealousy over Phoebus's interaction with Esmeralda. That night, he follows Phoebus to his meeting with her. As Frollo eavesdrops, he hears Esmeralda pledging her love to Phoebus. Consumed with rage, Frollo, disguised as a goblin, stabs Phoebus repeatedly in the back. Esmeralda faints, and when she awakens, Phoebus's soldiers believe she is the one who attacked him, so they arrest her. Esmeralda is tortured until she confesses to a crime she didn't commit. She is sentenced to hang, and on the day of her execution, she sees Phoebus in the distance. He survived the attack, but wrongly believes she was responsible, so he doesn't care about her fate. Quasimodo, however, does care. Like in the movie, he swings down from Notre Dame to rescue her and brings her into the cathedral for sanctuary. The key difference between this scene and the film is that, in the book, Esmeralda and Quasimodo haven't had much interaction beyond her saving him from the pillory. Over the next few days, while she stays with him in the cathedral, she slowly becomes more accustomed to his misshapen appearance. Eventually, Parliament revokes Esmeralda's right to sanctuary, and the local gypsy community organizes a group to storm Notre Dame and rescue her. However, Quasimodo doesn't realize they're trying to help, so he defends Esmeralda from them, unaware that they're on the same side. His deafness complicates things, as the crowd can't explain their intentions to him. During this chaos, Frollo sneaks out and finds Esmeralda. He offers to help her escape, but reveals his true motive. He demands she marry him if she wants to avoid execution. Esmeralda refuses, choosing death over a life with Frollo. Frollo hands Esmeralda over to Sister Gudule, the woman whose baby was stolen years ago by gypsies. As Gudula berates Esmeralda, she notices that Esmeralda has the matching satin slipper from her lost daughter, realizing that Esmeralda is, in fact, her long-lost child. Gudule tries to protect her, but the guards still take Esmeralda to the gallows. In her efforts to defend her daughter, Gudule is killed. Quasimodo, having defended the cathedral from the gypsies, returns to find Esmeralda gone. He rushes to the tower, where he sees Frollo watching Esmeralda's execution. In a fit of grief and rage, Quasimodo picks Frollo up by the neck and, after locking eyes with him, throws him off the tower to his death. Seeing the bodies of both Esmeralda and Frollo, Quasimodo collapses in despair, crying, "There is everything I ever loved." Years later, Esmeralda's grave is opened, and her skeleton is found with the misshapen skeleton of a hunchback curled around her. This is how the tragic story of the Hunchback of Notre Dame ends. The video wraps up by mentioning some other details left out of the summary, like Esmeralda's pet goat, who could tell time and impersonate politicians, and Frollo's turn to black magic and alchemy in an attempt to make Esmeralda love him.